Hello everybody, I think I look like a pale ghost and I don't know whether this is the first video back for you guys or not. If so, you guys can thank Denise from the channel A Chaos in the Enchanted Forest for this, because she has requested me to make a list of the top 16 books of all time, and this is creating a little bit of a you know, like a personality crisis or whatever. Like, what are my favorite books? Do I even like remember some of these books that, you know, are rank highly in my heart? Answer to that will be nope. So I am creating this video because today I have to give Denise a list of 16 books that are like my top 16 in random order. She will then kind of like try to guess which the top 3 is, and that video should be out at the same time or like an hour before this video is, so I will have it linked in the description box down below, so please do go and check it out. But I thought that for my part I could potentially, you know, like try and make a video in which I am making this order, because I am starting out with a ton of books, way more than the ones that I need to be starting out with, because I just cannot choose, and now I have to figure out how to screen record on this thing. And yeah, okay. So I should be screen recording. Unfortunately, I don't think I can fully get rid of that ad at the top of my view, but you should be seeing some of this now, and like I'll cut out a little bit of more of the ad if possible. But I've got 5 tiers. So the first one is top 3. So we are going to leave it out for as long as possible, because I don't think I can like confidently place books in my top 3 from the beginning. Who knows, maybe I'll put something in there like straight away, but I think we're gonna be putting stuff in the top 10, and then I'm gonna have to come up with like which one of those are going into the top 3. Then we have the top 10 tier, everything that is above 3, but between 3 and 10 as going in there. Can't believe this is not in my top 10. Can't believe I'm leaving it off, so the ones that are like 16 and beyond. And then the nostalgia is strong in this one, because I do feel like I have at the very least 2 books on this list that are there for the nostalgia, but I can quite easily, I think, leave off of the top 16. So here we go. First up is one of the most recent one. I did not make a top books of 2024 video, but if I would have, the Silver Blood Promise would have been in there. Where would it have landed? No idea. This is not me placing it there, but this one is going to go into Can't Believe I'm leaving it up for the time being, because I feel like I am too close to having read it to make my mind up. Also, this is the beginning of a series, so that also kind of makes me feel like I cannot like put it in the top 16. So, you know, the reasoning might not be all that strong for it, but the nostalgia is so low for it at this point in time that I'm like, you know, it can stay off. Maybe it'll get its shining moment at some point in time. The Seventh Perfection by Daniel Polanska is another fantasy. It is a fantasy told in a really interesting way, because it's kind of told through answers. You are always giving the answers to questions. You don't really get the question that is asked, and you're kind of puzzling the story out that way. It is a novella, and I'm gonna put it here for the time being. It might move down, but for the time being I think I might want to keep it into Can't believe this is not in my top 10. The Goblin Emperor. So another fantasy. The Goblin Emperor is sort of like cozy fantasy. It's a fantasy of court intrigue, a fantasy of manners kinda, and it's got this character, like this main character who's so near and dear to my heart. He's just like a guy who is forced into this position. He has never really been prepared for the cutthroat world of court intrigue, of court maneuvering, and he's just trying to do the best he can and just kind of feels inadequate most of the time. So the character is really what sells this book for me. I love Maya and hate every time that something bad happens to him or that he feels anxious or anything like that. I'm like, I'm already tempted to move the Seven Perfection down and to put the Goblin Emperor instead. They would just both be there for very different reasons, so let's just temporarily keep them there, right? Both of them. Master of Sorrows, this screenshot doesn't fully show the full title, but Master of Sorrows can go into the top 10. So this is a fantasy book, first in a series. There are only 2 out, I think, at the moment. The third one we've been waiting for a very long time, so I'm kind of fearing that this series might be on hold for a long time and that might not, maybe we'll never even get it. But I will say that the second book also was not as good for me personally, just because the thematics and the story arc of the first one just really touch upon personal experience. So in Master of Sorrows, we are following this boy at the sort of like magical academy. He has been born with only one hand, and this is a world that is very discriminatory against people with disabilities or disfigurements, because the sort of like evil god within this religion is somebody with a disfigurement. And so he has to go through life hiding his disfigurement with a sort of like fake hand. And so the first book very much explores this thematic of disability and the sort of like, in this case the hiding of a disability, but for me then the sort of like invisibility of certain disabilities and stuff like that. And so it really spoke heavily to me. I cried during this one, and because it's such a personal book to me, I definitely think it earns a spot in my top 10. Tender is the Flesh is a book translated from Spanish. It's an Argentinian novel. It deals with cannibalism. It explores a future world in which animal flesh can no longer be eaten because there are certain bacteria in it that kind of cause people to go crazy. And so rather than us all having been forced to go over into a plant-based diet, the meat lobby has kind of made human meat consumption more accessible. Basically, it has kind of made human meat production part of a sort of like factory process, a process that is so far that removes humanity from the production of meat to such an extent that people no longer see the meat that they're eating as having come from people. So very much exploring the idea of the consumption of meat through the lens of what if this were, like, can we get to the same level of emotional distancing from human meat as we do from animal meat. I'm tempted to put this in my top 10 actually. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, another heartbreaking one. I don't remember too much about this one, I gotta admit. So with that in mind, I think I can put it in Can't Believe I'm Leaving It Off. I remember crying my eyes out with this one, but I don't remember why or what the story was even about. So that's an easy one to leave off for now, because I don't know whether I said, but this list contains 29 books. We need to do some cutting in order to make it. We need to talk about Kevin by Lionel Shriver. A really interesting, dark book. If you've seen the movie, then I don't know whether the book is still fully worthwhile, but there is there's something that happens in the movie that there's something that happens in the books that isn't shown in the movie. It might be implied, that I don't actually remember, but I remember that thing is actually the thing that shocked me even more in the book than the sort of shocking revelation of the movie. And I think we go into both in a different way. In one of the two we kind of know something that is going to happen from the beginning, and the other one we don't, which kind of is an interesting way to, like, even if you've seen the movie, you can still read the book then to see like how going into it with that knowledge kind of changes the way that you experience the story, how that changes your perspective of what is happening within it. I think it's a really, really interesting one, but should it be in my top 16? I think I'll leave it off for now, but I'll put it here like at the front. Go to the front, why is that? If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino, top 10. This is a really interesting book. It is a book full of first chapters. Every chapter, a sort of like new first chapter starts. It's very meta. It's very much like addresses the reader as a reader, talks about the art of literature. Yeah, there's just so much meta stuff in there, which I really, really enjoy. And this book was just like a pleasure house for that. An Echo of Things to Come by, why can I not come up with the name of this guy at this moment? James Islington or Islington, never know how to pronounce this. I was tempted to put The Will of the Many here, but I think that An Echo of Things to Come is still like higher in my regard at this point in time. Will of the Many is just the first in the series as well, so you know, like I like with the Silver Bells Promise, I feel like I need to see further how the series develops to fully be sure that it can top the Lycanius trilogy. An Echo of Things to Come is a book that really messed up in my mind. The first time I read it, I was like, I don't think I understood a single thing of this, or like I feel like I should have reread book 1 to fully be able to enjoy book 2. Then I did that, and then I still was like, whoa, what did I just read? So I had to really go back and revisit book 2 and kind of try and come to a timeline in order to make sense of it. But the way that it all fits together is something that I really like. It's kind of like that's like masterful crafting of a time loop, and so for now it can go into my top 16. Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. I really like Sword of Kaigen. It is sort of like, it is a fantasy, but it is also, we are following it from the perspective of a character who is very much sort of like put by the wayside, who's very much just like left to the side of the action and kind of seen as like, you know, she's the woman, so she just like has to take care of the family, and her magical power, magical abilities are sort of like no longer seen as relevant, where she is very powerful, and you know, there are a lot of very powerful, there are a few very powerful scenes in here that, you know, are some of the most heartbreaking scenes I've read, and some of the most sort of like badass scenes that I've read. So, but I'm also like, is this one of the I'll put it here for the time being. Lanny by Max Porter needs to go into the top 10. For quite a while I've been saying that this is my favorite book, but honest to God, I have to say that I've forgotten quite a bit about it at this point in time. And so I should actually reread it to be able to say that again. So at this point in time, it will not become my top book, I think. This is a book about sort of like the us versus them mentality. It's a family from the city moving into the countryside with their young boy called Lanny. And a lot of what actually happens has gone missing in my mind. But what I remember really liking is kind of like the voice of the town. You kind of listen in on the thoughts of the townspeople and get their perspective through sort of these stream of consciousness in which you kind of get to see all of their thoughts around the same time. The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson has had a really bad streak for me personally, and that has taken down my appreciation of all of his books, unfortunately. The Emperor's Soul probably remains the one that like is left standing the most, because if I have to think of like what would be my favorite Sanderson outside of that, it might be Words of Radiance, but because of how much I was struggling with Nights and Truths and the fact that I still haven't finished that book, the Stormlight Archive is also a little bit of a hesitance selection for me at this point in time. So The Emperor's Soul is the one left standing at this point in time, and it's a novella. I do really love The Emperor's Soul. I'm gonna put it in the top 16, but we will see. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is a favorite, but the problem with this book is that part of the reason why I love it so much is that reading this book is kind of an event. It is not, I don't know how much the story is actually the thing that I enjoy the most about it. It's just the fact that this is a story that takes place around Christmas time, and so now I listen to it every like Christmas time, or I try to. I'm trying to make it a tradition to listen to it always while I'm putting up the Christmas tree. So if this was a story that did not take place during Christmas time, would I re-listen this all that much? Probably not. I would still think that it's a really solid story. It would still be my favorite Charles Dickens probably, but does it warrant such a high mark in and of itself, or is it just the fact that it is linked to Christmas that places it that highly? So I think we are putting it there. The Bastard of Istanbul by Elif Shafak, we will also be putting it in the Can't Believe I'm Leaving This Off section. I did not enjoy, I enjoyed my first Elif Shafak, I didn't love it, and so if it wouldn't have been for the fact that The Bastard of Istanbul was included in a book box that I was subscribed to at that point in time, I may have never gotten to another Elif Shafak, because I may have never prioritized another book by her unless maybe it won like a big prize or something like that. And so I'm very, very happy that I had this book in a book box, because The Bastard of Istanbul is my favorite Elif Shafak up until this point. By now I've read like 4, maybe 5 Elif Shafaks, and I really enjoy her writing style a whole ton, but I don't think that any of her books is like that high that I cannot leave it off of this list at this point in time. There's always hope for more. Traveling Cat Chronicles can go into the top 10. This is why I'm reading so many Japanese cozy books or cozy books featuring cats, to recreate the experience that is the Traveling Cat Chronicles, but the Traveling Cat Chronicles stays at the summum of this genre. Both really sweet and really heartbreaking. That's what I'm looking for. The Melting by Lisa Spitz, I'm gonna leave it off. We will put it here. It's a really dark book, and the author is the same age as me, and there's a lot of recognizable things in it. A whole lot of stuff is not recognizable, in case you've read this book and you're like, oh, whoa, she had an interesting childhood. No. But there are definitely like the technology of that time, the things that we were like watching or playing and stuff. Yeah, playing is probably wrong in the instance of this book, but certain things about this book really speak to the nostalgia of, you know, like growing up at the same time as this author did. But it is very dark, somewhat predictable, I do guess, when it comes to the main event. Though arguably the main event is actually something else, is a reason for the main event. But yeah, I definitely think like it's a book that will really stick with me forever, but it doesn't necessarily make my top 16, I don't think so. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. With that one, I'm always wondering, like, what would have happened with this book in my mind if there wasn't a whole J.K. Rowling controversy, J.K. Rowling and her opinions, and doubling down on her opinions and feeling like this is the best use for her platform. So to be clear, no way do I agree with J.K. Rowling. I very much support the transgender community, and I definitely think that the way that she's using her platform is somewhat despicable and very sad, and very unlike some of the lessons that her characters learn in her series. But before that, Harry Potter was like my favorite series. It's so much childhood nostalgia for me. Yes, I was growing more critical of some of the things in it, and of like some of the more questionable stuff in there, like and a lot of stuff that is referred to, for example, are like the house elves. But I also feel like, you know, like despite the fact that there's this redemption arc for Snape, the way that Snape acts towards his students most of the time also is really not that acceptable for a professor who teaches students. You know, he should have never been allowed in this role if he was gonna insult kids about the way that their teeth look and stuff like that, you know. And so I feel like all of that is very problematic looking back on it. But so Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, the first book that ever made me cry, and so my favorite Harry Potter at that point in time, the first time I had such an emotional connection to a story, to a character, to that scene, that, you know, this one will always have an important role in my life, but it's definitely now very much marred with negative feelings. It's definitely one that I will always hesitate to pick up now, and that doesn't mean that I won't, because I actually like reread the first 4 pages of the first Harry Potter recently, for example, so I'm thinking of maybe rereading the Harry Potters now and seeing how I feel about reading them, because reading them now it's just like I don't have the same joy that I had as before, and so I don't even know whether I can still read them without, you know, thinking of all of that. So in any case, it's one where it's like the nostalgia is strong in this one. This one formed me as a reader, so I am mentioning it here. But I have no problems leaving it off the top 16. Human Acts by Han Kang is a really strong book, which we are now placing in the top 10. This is it's not a non-fiction, I don't think so, but it's definitely a book that is inspired by real events. It is about a student uprising in South Korea that was heavily shut down by authorities, and so we are following students on that night and all the things that they went through. It's a very hard, gruesome book to read, but also a really good one in my opinion. Earthlings by Sayaka Murata, also dark, very much more fictional. Very difficult to read, especially in the first third, because the first third we're following a child perspective, a child that goes through very various forms of assault. So very difficult to read. Then we do have a time jump, and the thematic that we talk about with this one, which we also talked about with Convenience Store Woman, is it's very much, a lot of Sayaka Murata's works talks about sort of like conventions of society and needing to conform within society to be accepted, and so about these figures that step outside of the norm and that feel comfortable stepping outside of the norm, those characters who don't feel the need to comply, and how society kind of cannot seem to accept that somebody would be comfortable and happy living outside of what society considers as to be the ideal. Persuasion by Jane Austen, one of my favorite classics, and my favorite Jane Austen, of course. I absolutely love this book. Like for many, Pride and Prejudice is their favorite Jane Austen, but for me, Persuasion really wins me over with its sort of like quiet, calm protagonist who kind of always takes a step back, who never really steps into the forefront herself, but who's always like strongly supportive of the people around her, and like willing to overlook the flaws of the people around her. The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. I really love this one, but where do we place it? Here, I think, but it's falling off. And potentially the third one has some impact on that, because the series didn't fully land like emotional for me. I really loved the first book, and then the second book made me go like, oh wow, now I'm obsessed with this. And that's probably an issue, because of that I went into book 3 with such high expectations, and it didn't fully live up to my expectations for it. So I do want to reread that one when I can go into it a little bit more neutrally. But so now my opinion of this is kind of like, yeah, I really love that book, but there's just that slight caveat of the fact that I didn't fully like the third book the way that I thought I was going to. Jurassic Park, the nostalgia is strong in this one. Yeah, I mean, I love Jurassic Park the movie. I read the book way later in life, but I think that the book definitely adds on to the experience that is the movie. But yeah, it's, you know, it's not high literature. It's not going to be one of the most impactful books. If I would have read the book first and the movie later, and if I would have read the book as a child and my obsession with Jurassic Park was in book format, then maybe if were the video of like the top 16 movies, maybe I would struggle more to leave this off, but I don't have the same sort of connection to the book as I do to the movie. Letter for the King, this is sort of like the Harry Potter sort of story. I read Letter for the King and To Become a King and Harry Potter. I started reading those around the same time, so around the age of 10, 11. These are the books that got me into reading, and so they will always have like a very sweet spot in my heart. Letter for the King might also have some controversy. I'm not actually all that aware of it. I think that Donker Dracht might also have had some controversy surrounding her, but I haven't really looked into that in any case. But yeah, Letter for the King is just, it has a sweet spot in my mind because of the fact that it made me read, and because of that I'm so familiar with that story and will always be that familiar with that story because of how many times I reread it as a child. But it's not necessarily something that now, having read so much, I feel compelled to keep into my top 16, because it would mean leaving something off that's probably is better for me in any case. Memory of Souls, my favorite one of A Chorus of Dragons. So the difficulty here is I really love A Chorus of Dragons. I really need to reread it. I do really love the play with the perspectives there and time and all of that, and the way that it's put together, the same as I was talking about with An Echo of Things to Come. I still have a slot here, right? Let's just leave it there for now. How much do I have here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. I think we're gonna come into maybe some issues. War and Peace needs to go into the top 10 as well. It's always debatable for me whether Persuasion or War and Peace is my favorite classic. Persuasion I reread more because it's way shorter. War and Peace I've only read it one time. But yeah, the one time left a really big impression on me. And actually I don't know where my copy of War and Peace is. I was going to do the year of War and Peace and read a chapter every day last year, but I quickly fell off the bandwagon for that. But now I'm also like, where's my copy of War and Peace? So I really need to locate that. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, really enjoyed it. And so I'm already seeing okay, I cannot, I can put it in the top 10, I have space for that, but there's something else I will probably want to put there. So for now I'm going to put it there. I really think that Piranesi, once again, is one of these books that I find just really interesting in terms of what it is actually about. So it looks to be very fantastical about this guy stuck in a world that is constantly flooding, and I think the world is described really interesting, especially if you then look at paintings of Piranesi. But when you then kind of get to the end and kind of figure out more of sort of the whole and what it actually represents, then that's just kind of increases my appreciation for this book. So I think it can go into at least the top 16. The Overstory by Richard Powers can fall off because I don't remember enough about it. I know that I really enjoyed this book, and it was my favorite book in one particular year. This is a book in which we follow 5 perspectives, I think, of people who somehow have something to do with trees. And the story is structured around the different parts of a tree, and it has to do a lot with trees, conservation. It takes a lot of insight into the study of trees into the fictional form. I remember feeling like it didn't fully land in the final part, and yeah, I just remember the basic concept behind it, but no real scene or anything like that of this book still inhabits my mind, so I feel like I leave it off. Ship of Magic I am going to put in the top 10. It is definitely one of my favorite fantasies of recent years, and with that I mean that I've read in recent years, because this is not a recent book, but I really enjoyed this series a whole ton. There might be another book within that series that I love more, that I cannot really say at this point in time, because I think I loved all 3 books in that series so much that, unlike with the Fitz books where I'm not really that much of a lover of Fitz, and so I have a clear favorite book there. Here I feel like all 3 of them I really love a whole ton, so I don't really have a favorite there, so I'm just putting Ship of Magic there to represent the entire series basically. And then She Who Became the Sun, we are putting off. I did really love this one, but the second one again, it was disappointing, but basically also because I didn't reread book 1, so book 2 was a little bit confusing for me. It also followed a certain character way more than expected, a character that I didn't enjoy that much from book 1, and so also didn't remember all that much of. So I feel like it could have benefited from a reread, but I didn't. And what I do remember is I really enjoyed She Who Became the Sun. I enjoyed the Chinese representation for this, but I also enjoyed like the look at this female character in a man's world, in you know, like this is a retelling of Mulan basically, taking on this man's role, but it also had disability representation that really spoke to me, but since I have Master of Sorrows in for that, I feel like She Who Became the Sun had that in a lesser degree, so I don't feel as compelled to put it in for that reason. But so yeah, it's a lot about, you know, like how women are more than the image that they are kind of asked to comply with, and this is very much a woman stepping outside of what is considered to be a woman's place or a woman's role. So I have something marked on my screen over there, which might be an indication of the fact that my SIM card is, like not SIM card, but my memory card is almost full. Basically, all I really need to figure out is the top 3. I don't need to get the rest of the order correct. And I think at this point in time, actually, Lanny is no longer the favorite. We are putting Earthlings all the way to the top there. This is so difficult. I have one book too many here as well, and I think that I'm gonna leave off the 7th Perfection actually. Don't know, I'm gonna put off the Emperor's Soul. I think the 7th Perfection can stay because it at least has that really special structure thing going on, which is something that I really enjoy. I mean, how do you decide on the top 3? I find these are such different books. It's really like, I can make a case for like Tender is the Flesh or Inhuman Acts, kind of, it's either or, you know, Persuasion and War and Peace, it's either or. I guess if it were to be between Master of Sorrows and Ship of Magic, Master of Sorrows would win that because of its personal connection. This is too difficult. I feel like I'm gonna put Tender is the Flesh somewhere in there. A top 3 just sounds so heavy, you know. It's just like, is this really my 3rd favorite book of all times? Isn't that like an exaggeration? Ah. And maybe like if you would have asked me this like right after reading Lanny would be like maybe a sure fit, because I know that I was super excited about it at that point in time. But that excitement has just really gone down because it's been a very long time, and so now the most prominent thing in my memory is how much I enjoyed it, but no longer really much about the actual experience. And so I'm kind of feeling like I kind of want to put Master of Sorrows in there just because I want a fantasy book there. And I do definitely think that Ship of Magic is probably better, as in like it's Master of Sorrows is in there for very personal reasons, but that's also what a top 3 is. That is also why certain books work for some people and they don't for others, is because of those personal reasons, of course. And this book managed to speak to me on a personal level, which is very powerful in terms of a reading experience. But then I'm always like, yeah, but compare that to like a masterpiece such as War and Peace. But then like this isn't an objective list, this is a very subjective list. And as clearly indicated, this order is going to be very arbitrary to the day, but I think I am going to put Master of Sorrows there. Am I happy with that? Earthlings in number 1, Tender is the Flesh number 2, Master of Sorrows number 3. Yeah. Let's try and order these just for kicks, I guess. And let me maybe put the Traveling Cat Chronicle at the front here. If on a Winter's Night can go a little bit down. Human X there. Lanny can go a bit. I mean, I have to put War and Peace and Persuasion right next to each other because I just cannot decide between those two. I guess If on a Winter's Night can also go down in the meantime a little bit because it's been so long. And I just remember like something that I clearly appreciate a lot in literature, which you can see from my top 16, is like something different, is differences in structure, playing with the form, playing with meta elements, all of that. I think the Goblin Emperor can go down a little bit. I'm okay with that, I think. So that's the top 3. That's what I'm going for. It's final, it's official. I don't have to think about this anymore for years to come, I hope, because this was excruciating. How long did this take? 36 minutes to figure this out. Hope the video is shorter for you guys, but I actually don't think so. I don't think I'll have to cut much out of this probably, but so yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this. A little bit of a look into my mind and into my choices. I am now already like super afraid of the fact that I might have forgotten some like super important books to me, like maybe something that could have made it into the top 3 and that I just didn't even think about. But yeah, my camera is overheating, so I just have to say bye-bye right now. Thank you so much, Denise, for the video concept. And I hope, like, I'm looking forward to seeing what you came up with. See you guys, bye!